I had a video request on the Belarus 250AS for a quick breakdown and run through of the loader frame and how it's connected, because this is kind of different than a lot of tractors, and they don't make these loaders anymore for it that I know of. So if you're going to put a loader on here and you can't find one of these Brantley manufacturing loaders that's made for this, then you're going to need to retrofit. I'm just going to give you a quick rundown of the frame, attachment points, and dimensions real quick. And if you wanted to, you could fabricate this yourself. It's not that difficult. The main thing would be you have to have the proper width between the loader arms to fit, and everything else can be fabricated from raw metal and hardware relatively easily. So let's take a look at that real quick. So this loader is connected with this subframe that bolts underneath the frame of the tractor. So there's a bar on each side underneath here, and it's fastened, or it's bolted back there through one of the extra holes on the frame that hangs down under the tractor. Let me show you from the back, might be a little easier to see. And you could use, there's a couple holes on this tractor, and you could use any of them. These cast brackets for the lower 3-point arms, I noticed on my 87 tractor, they're slightly different, but they still have the same front hole where the loader bolts on. So my guess is that regardless of your Euro tractor, if it has those 3-point arm castings, it should still have that hole. So it's bolted through the back. So this bar is 62 inches long by 4 inches high and 3/4 inch thick. And that's of course steel. And then there's 2 points that they have welded on here for U-bolts that go around the engine frame. And of course you could add more if you wanted. And those are just, welded on plates. You could use angle steel, and then of course they just cut the angle down there, but you wouldn't have to. You could just use angle steel cut out for the shape of the bar and weld it on. And then they have this plate underneath. This plate sticks out about, well, in this case, 15 3/4 inches from that bar. Between the bars in the middle is 13 inches. So it's, of course, this dimension is going to be the same on the other side. It's a 15 3/4, and then 13 between the bars, and then 15 3/4 here. And then of course they just have these bolted on. There's these plates, these angle plates, and they're welded to this bar and then bolted on here. So you can't actually remove this lower arm. I would probably weld this whole thing if I was doing it. I don't know if I'd trust just that bolt. And this steel is the same, 4 inch by 3/4. This spacing is also obviously dependent on whatever loader you choose, and of course how it's connected. You might have to change that, but that's the critical part there for actually bolting it on the tractor. Now this has the front cross bracing again, which is just a bar that goes from the top bolt point on the loader here, cantilevered to the front, and it has a little bit of a kick bend here to make it so it bolts on straight at this bar, and it has a kick up there. This bar is 46 inches by 3 inches by 5/8 thick steel. And then they fabricated this on the front from 2 pieces of angle, and then they boxed in the ends here with steel. And this is just 3/8. This is 3/8 steel, all of this. And then they ran the bolts in there. That bolt, apparently I forgot to tighten. I'll have to tighten that one of these days. This angle is, this angle is 5 inches high, and it sticks out 3 inches. And then the lower one is 3.5 inches high, and of course sticks out the same 3 inches. And the distance across the front is 23 inches. And then, like I said, they just boxed this in here so they could bolt through it from the side, and use the same bolts that you would for your weight carrier, the casting for the weight carrier. They just drilled and used the same bolts for the weight carrier as that. And of course, depending on your loader, you could change, you know, mainly you just want that bracket down there, and then you can bolt on whatever you need to your loader. Like I said, easy to fabricate from raw steel and everything. The main thing is, what really makes it easy is if your loader has straight verticals that bolt flat on the bottom. If you have that, then that's fine. The distance between the arms here, just so you're aware, I'm going to measure inside at the posts here, is almost 3 feet exactly, 36 inches. So if you're looking for a loader that you can mount on here, you're going to want one. I wouldn't want it too much narrower than this, honestly, because you want to be able to work on stuff, and you want room for the hydraulics and any cantilever front braces that you want. So I wouldn't want it really any narrower than 3 feet. And the distance in the front then, on these arms, you want, this is about from the front of the post, you know, this is something like 54 inches. But again, this can be adjusted. If you're making this yourself, it can be adjusted anywhere you want within reason, you know, between the tire and the back of the cab here. You got a good 18 inches to work with there if you wanted. If you're going to retrofit a loader on here, that's what you're looking for. And of course, like I said, you probably wouldn't want to go narrower, but if you were in a pinch, you could. Things to watch out for here is your steering gear. You don't want that to hit anything. And of course, you only have about 2.5 inches between your battery box and the loader on this. So 3 feet is going to probably be about your minimum. You could probably go just a couple inches narrower, but that's going to be about it. So that's it for a quick run through and dimensions of that. Oh, these U-bolts are 3/4 inch U-bolts, I think. But yeah, they're 3/4 inch diameter U-bolts. They're easy enough, you can find, you know, online, or don't cheap out on those, because that's all that's holding your loader, that and the bolt in the back that kind of cantilevers the whole thing. But those two U-bolts on each side and the bolt in the back, that's all it's holding the main weight of the loader here. So do not cheap out on it. This loader is rated for 1,000 pounds, and I'm not sure if I've lifted 1,000 pounds with it yet, but I definitely won't want to overstress it. Some of it is overbuilt, like this front frame is definitely overbuilt, but down there where there's just one bolt on each side holding this frame in vertically, I mean, like I said, I would probably weld that if I was doing it, but mine seems to be holding up. This actually has decent ground clearance. This gives you 13 inches approximately from the ground using that size frame and everything. So it's actually not terrible. It does reduce your ground clearance by, you know, 4 or 5 inches by the time you get the bolts and stuff in there. So keep that in mind if you're adding a loader. You can, now this tractor is in the mid setting, I believe. Yeah, it's in the mid setting. We can go up one more notch, which would get you a couple more inches. So that's a possibility too. I've covered that in other videos. You gotta swing the outer axle hubs. They swing down, and of course it would go lower one position. We're in the middle, and then the front raises and lowers as well. There's different bolt points. Here, this goes up and down. I want to make a note on the subframe here. It seems like it'd be logical engineering to continue this subframe forward under the axle and tie it into the front subframe and lower this down here. But if you do that, your axle loses some side-to-side adjustment, you know, if you're going over uneven terrain, and it could hit your frame. So keep that in mind. I don't know if there'd be a way to make the subframe smaller under the axle and still retain. I don't know what the clearance is on side to side of this axle. But that would be something to consider if you're engineering this. It'd be easy enough to put it up on a jack. It'd be easy enough to figure that out, you know, if you have the tractor anyway, if you're going to build one of these yourselves. Obviously this is strong enough for their 1,000-pound rating for this loader. I would think if you extended it under the axle, even if you went lowered and reduced your ground clearance, you could probably add a little bit of weight capacity in there of the actual frame, not necessarily the hydraulics, obviously. Also, I wanted to add one more thing about performance with the loader as far as steering goes. This tractor does not have power steering yet. It is in my future plans to add power steering. This loader weighs a lot. I don't know how much it weighs, but just empty, it's a considerable amount. And in another video I showed this, I think, or I will show it if I haven't. But I took the ballast weights that were in the front and I've added them to the back to my trailer hitch arrangement here. You know, they're easily removable. They're just sitting on here. I think these are like, I don't know, 60, 80 pound a piece. And those 4 ballast weights moved from the front to the back pretty much returned the steering weight to normal, steering effort to normal. Now that's unloaded. As soon as you put weight on that loader, the steering effort increases. So if you're going to be carrying weight around on your loader, whatever loader you put on the front of one of these things, you're definitely going to want ballast weight on the rear if you don't have power steering. And even if you do have power steering, it'll help out a little bit. So something to keep in mind if you are retrofitting a loader onto one of these. So that's a quick run through on loader and dimensions on the Belarus 250 AS. Hopefully this helps somebody out, especially if you're looking to retrofit or fabricate your own frame for one of these things. This was basically fabricated by Brantley Manufacturing from, you know, off-the-shelf steel parts, bars and angle iron and that sort of thing. And they basically just welded up the frame for this and then attached the loader to it. So you can do the same thing with any loader that fits these dimensional requirements that will fit on the front of the tractor. Like I said, hopefully that helps somebody out. Always appreciate likes, comments. Leave them down below if you got them. And as always, thanks for watching.